Hello again. Welcome back to Fibre Haptic Crafts. My name is Victoria, or Vicky, or Vic, only if you're my sister. I'm a historian and fibre artist from Manchester in the UK. If you want to know more about what I'm up to, please do check out the social media links in the description of this video. And do remember to like the video and subscribe if that's the kind of thing you would like to help me out with. Today I am going to be going through what I think of as quite an ugly magazine. I know this is entirely subjective. My husband is the one who's into football, and I mean really into football. So this is an old magazine of his, or not that old, but at least one he's finished with, which I've gone and rescued out of the recycling. And it's not really the sort of aesthetic that I look for when I'm putting things in a junk journal or a glue book. I've got a collection of my own magazines which I subscribed to for a while. I've got a collection of those. They tend to be gardening, so lots of flowers in there, or travel magazines, so lots of nice pictures of views and landmarks, interesting things like that. And they're actually maybe a little too easy for me to find pictures in. I do get just far too many nice things out of those. It's dead easy just to go through a gardening magazine, cut out all of the flowers, and end up with a large tub of flower pictures, which are pretty in themselves but are not necessarily that inspiring. They don't really get my brain ticking over to think, oh, how could I use that? And that's interesting. I don't normally go for that colour or something like that. I look at a flower and it's like, that's a flower. I'm going to stick it in the book as a flower, where it will be a picture of a flower, and that's it. Job done. Might draw some leaves around it. It's not much of a creative exercise. So instead, what I'm doing today is I'm challenging myself to get as much useful material as I can out of a magazine which does not really lend itself to that purpose as easily as the ones that I tend to go towards. And what I'm going to be using for this is, I've got the magazine itself, got some scissors, I've got some acrylic markers, a few different ones here. I might grab a couple more as I go along. I've got a craft punch. This is a 2-inch circle with a what's it called? You know, a wobbly edge. If I think of the word, I'll stick it on the screen later. But a slightly wobbly circle, because that's something that I struggle to cut out myself all that accurately, or I get bored of doing too many of these. And I'm also going to grab my craft knife. And as I go through this magazine, I'm going to be looking for 4 different things. I do it in this particular order. I'm looking for useful images or parts of images. Secondly, I'm looking for words and lettering that I can use. Third thing I'm looking for is patterned backgrounds. And then the fourth thing I'm looking for is plain blocks of colour. So images, text, patterns, colours, essentially. And to make this a little easier on myself, what I'm going to do first of all, if this was a magazine that had staples in it, and most of them do, then I would take the staples out and then open it up at the middle page, cut it in half, so I then have a stack of essentially sort of A4 size paper which I can work through, and I can work through that a few pages at a time, and that's easier than dealing with the whole magazine. This one has actually been glued together. The spine's got glue in it. So I'm opening that up near the middle, not necessarily in the middle. I'm going to go down the centre of that spine carefully with a craft knife. Just cut it in half. You have to be super accurate. Let's see if that's gone all the way through. Nearly. Slice it up a bit more. Yep. And this is going to make it easier to peel away or tear away one page at a time to work with. There we go. The magazine is destroyed. All right then. So now, yeah, you can see that is coming away quite nicely, and we're not having to deal with that middle section, and we can easily keep track of what's on one side and what's on the other side. Because the frustrating thing about magazines occasionally is when you look on one side and think, oh, that's a really lovely picture, I'm going to save that, and you look on the other side and you're like, oh no, that's also great, now I have to decide which one. But occasionally sacrifices have to be made. So I'll just deal with half of this magazine. I think I'm going to leave the other half for me to go through again another time. So images, pretty images. That elephant is very cool, but there is something, I don't know, maybe this makes me weird, maybe you will feel the same way. There's something in my brain resisting the idea of cutting out a picture of somebody's back tattoo and then sticking that on something else. I don't know why. I know in my head it's just an image, it's just an image on a piece of paper, but it's a little bit like being asked to tear up a picture of a loved one. You know it's not them, you know there's no curse involved here, it doesn't mean anything, it's just an image on a piece of paper. But I think if somebody asked you to tear up a picture of a family member or someone you really like or a pet or something, you'd be a bit, don't really want to do that, and there's something in me resisting that. So no, I'm not gonna go with your man's back tattoo, even though usually elephants would be a thing I'd go for. However, that slogan there, the "We Are Back" slogan, I can see that forming part of a page in a journal. Somehow I'm imagining a whole bunch of pictures of pigeons or seagulls or something, maybe holding up like a protest sign on a stick. I don't know. That could make quite a fun element in something. So I'm calling that, even though it's text, I'm calling that an image. It will essentially work as an image in itself. So there's nothing else I particularly want from that side. Nothing's really grabbing me there. Let's see any other images that we might like. That's going to be some fun, that I'm counting as a pattern. I'll come back to that afterwards, assuming there's nothing on the other side that I like. Nope. Nothing I'd want to use in its entirety here. Oh, look at him in his helmet. Might possibly cut that out and give it to somebody else. I know a couple of people who are a little bit obsessed. That is such a cool picture. Don't know what I'd use it for, but that crowd shot is brilliant. A duck in a jacket. Definitely cutting out a duck in a jacket. about the last thing I expected to see in this magazine, so that's a definite win. One duck. A little cat in a van as well. That's a little bit too small though, but indistinct. Don't think so. Though, I'm going to call that question mark quite a handy image. Yeah, it's quite cool. Golf in a football magazine. How rude. This t-shirt's quite cool. Let's see what's on the back of that. There is a lot that I want on the back of that. Yeah, I'm gonna not quite decapitate him, but take some of that out. It might be fun to stick that on a page and maybe pick out some of the drawings, maybe do my own little drawings of burgers and fries and things. Okay. Another view. Oh, that's pretty cool. There's some lovely colours in that. Don't think that as an image or a colour. But there's nothing important on the back of it, so it really doesn't matter. Make this a little more manageable again. Good, looking good. That fireworks quite nice. In fact, that whole firework against the dark blue sky there. Is a very cool image in itself, I think. Yeah, happy with that. Anything else here? Not immediately. Some quite nice patterned background there for future reference. See if I still like that when I come back round again. Sometimes on your second pass through the magazine, you do spot things that you haven't spotted before, and you start to look at it in a different way. You'll see that in a minute. Nothing super exciting here. Gosh, that's quite a close-up, isn't it? Okay, is that the same image as before? Gosh, it is, isn't it? Just about. Seems a bit rude. Although, I guess if you have one, you could use both of those in a collage. You could even have one way up and the other mirroring it slightly. It's not exactly the same scale, but that could be quite an interesting thing to do, even if it's the same one again. Let's go through. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think using those as a mirror image of each other, well, not quite a mirror image, but mirroring each other in a sense, that could be a really cool centerpiece or collage, I think. Okay. All right. Oh, and again. Okay. Oh, look at all that gorgeous blue. Yeah, that'll come in handy in a bit. Do I want another We Are Back picture? What's on the back of this? Yeah. Let's take that one. What's it for? Okay. Move on to add to the banner collection. Quite seeing anything here. Okay, so I think that's it for whole images. I'm going to go back through again and look for text that I might want, either whole words or letters that I can stick sort of ransom note style. What's on the back of that? I might take the line up there. It's quite a good bold set of letters there on the yellow background. I can see those coming in handy. The number 42. Look at that. I'm going to pass up the chance for a 42. Okay. Do I want a 32? Go on. I'm going to be cutting out some of this page anyway, so may as well get started. 32. That lettering's getting a bit lost, maybe. 2026 might be handy. It is, after all, the year that it is. Nothing I massively want on the back there. Yep. So I think you get the idea with the lettering. So I will do a bit more on my own and then show you what I harvested. Here is then my bountiful harvest of words. I've got a 4-2, which can go with my 42. I can honestly see myself going on a bit of a hunt for 42s over the next few months. Maybe try to get a whole answer to life, the universe and everything. I've actually already got life there, which is not the worst start. So I don't know, I might take life out of that. I might take change. Got another change there. That's quite a good sort of journal page prompt sort of word. I've got reach. That's maybe another good prompt word. Scribe. There is definitely somewhere else where I've got the word script, which I was going to use for something. Oh, actually in the greetings card journal where I used a prescription bag that's got script in the middle of it. So maybe script and scribe could be a bit of a theme somewhere. That I picked out just because it's a nice big bold bunch of words. I already told you that, didn't I? Never mind. There's my 32. That could be a 0, it could be an image, it could be oi, who knows. So that's either, you know, image or text there. Embrace is not a bad one for a prompt. Award or awards maybe, or those are quite good words anyway. I thought I'd pick out a what, which could potentially go with my little question mark. The year 2026. I also picked out a summer of, and then I was looking around for things that it could be a summer of, and one potential that sprang to mind, a summer of questions. Ooh, very inspirational. So that's my little harvest of smaller words. I also pulled out these 3 headlines purely because it's a whole bunch of letters in roughly the same size, same font, same colour, so those will be good for playing around with and making other words with. If you immediately spot any fun suggestions, then do let me know in the comments. Keep it clean, please, if you can, for the benefit of others. I don't mind, but other people might. But yeah, let me know if you spot any messages from the great beyond in here that I might not have noticed. So that's pretty good, pretty versatile set of words there. There'll be loads more that I missed going through, but I think that's enough for one session and for half a magazine, in fact. So I'll put those over with my pictures. Next thing takes a little bit more imagination, and it's patterns. I'm going to go through and look for some patterns. So already on this page I can see, yeah, nothing on the back of here, I can see some brickwork, however faint the brickwork is, as well as some interesting lines going across, lots of different angles of lines on that. That could be inspiration or part of something. And then there's other different brickwork at the back there. It's slightly blurry, but it's good enough to give an indication of something. So let's take that and see if we can make use of it. Okay. On the back of here, a great set of pattern. We've got some grass, which I expect is going to be a feature of this magazine, honestly. Though I do get a lot of grass from the gardening magazines too, but let's have that panel of grass pattern there. Hey, look at that line there. That's a good one. If we got on the back, nothing important. Let us take that fantastic white zigzag. What you don't necessarily notice until you bring it out is there's a slight sort of bluey green tinge to the edge of that light. That's rather nice. Okay. And we come to that massive expanse of glowy blue. I am going to grab a whole bunch of that. Take that bit as well. Oh, you know what I've just spotted is the word spotties. What I have just spotted is the word coven. Did I spell coven? Yeah, losing the plot now. Anyway, a word. Blue with a little bit of turquoise stripe at the bottom. That's a lovely bit of pattern there. this whole expanse, because there's so much of it, I'm going to grab my craft punch. What you can do with craft punch, usually they've got a clear base to them, so if you want you can see exactly what you're punching. So if I wanted to get that, I don't know, the wee and the bee there, I could centre it nicely. I am not too bothered how this comes out, so I'm just going to put that flat on the desk, get that push towards the end. Now, craft punches are one of those things like washi tape where you can get, you buy one, you find it useful, you decide you're going to buy a lot more of them. I have fallen foul of that slightly. I justified it to myself that the bigger ones that I got were actually secondhand off eBay. I had a look for the keyword de-stash or craft de-stash or craft room clear out. You have to exercise some self-control because you will find all manner of things. But that's how I got my bigger punches. And they do go blunt after a while. What I have heard, but I haven't tried yet, what I've heard is that if you then punch through some layers of tin foil, it will sharpen it back up again. But don't necessarily quote me on that. As I said, I haven't tried it. So taking out this from the bottom, we've got now a whole bunch of blurry blue circles. And you wouldn't necessarily know that that is a football crowd in the background there. That's really quite cool. And of course, we must not neglect the spaces that we've got as well, which can be quite nice frames for other things. So I'm going to reasonably carefully cut those out potentially for future use. Probably not all of them, but one or two of those. So if you put that over, what else have we got? Example, if you put one of those blue circles with that pink confetti in the background, that could look really quite effective as part of a page or part of a collage. So it is worth saving a few of these, even though they're a little bit delicate, so you're going to have to put them somewhere flat and secure or try and use them very, very soon. So I'm going to keep that bit. Where's that page gone? Right, I won't show you me cutting out the rest of that, but I will do something similar with that page. Let's see, other bits of texture that might come in handy. Now then, this, again, I'm feeling a bit iffy about cutting into a person's flesh and using that as decoration. Don't know why. No shade on anyone else who does it. It's just, it's giving me a squick. It's a squick I didn't know I had until I started doing this. But what I am going to do is I am going to give this guy here a little haircut. Because that texture there, well, I have slightly scalped him actually, but all right. Sorry, dude. All of that texture there is creating quite a nice, interesting pattern. So I'm going to add this to my collection of patterns. Okay. And oh yeah, so confetti, of course. On the back of here, nothing important to me. Let's cut all the way across here. Cut out a bit there. Now that circle, that base of the trophy there, do you know what? I'm going to cut that out separately. A nice, bold, distinct shape that, which I can then echo. I can then echo that elsewhere. I could have that on a page and I could draw similar interlocking circles around it. That's the real benefit of getting these textures out of a magazine. You never quite know what you're going to end up with. They're usually a lot more sort of random and interesting than carefully designed collage papers, which are typically designed in sets. They're meant to go with all sorts of things. You can get inspiration from them, but if you're buying the same mass marketed set of collage papers that everybody else is buying, then you're all going to have the same images in your journals, and it's going to follow current trends, the current aesthetic. Getting your own bits out of magazines, it can make your journal and your artwork a lot more unique and a lot more sort of timeless, I think. I buy collage papers as well, collage papers as well. Definitely adding to it from things you find slightly more organically, things that weren't designed for that purpose. It can add a whole other layer of interest. Take that little strip off there. Okay, that'll probably do. So a quick flick through, see if there's much else I can show you that I haven't already essentially shown you. That crowd scene there, sort of indistinct enough that it's just like little points of colour on a dark background. That could be quite good. Now more zigzags from that support beam up there. I could also have left the white edge on as well. That could have given us some nice stripes. Yeah, it's a good strip to add to something, and then again you can echo that pattern in marker or whatever you're using to write on top of your collages. There's that grass with the confetti on it there. It's rather nice. That could have been a good option for the hole punch. It still is actually a good option for the craft punch. That's big enough. That on the back of here, scarves and things. If that scarf was a bit bigger, that would have made quite a nice stripe, I think. Maybe I'll find a bigger scarf somewhere. The back of here, look, let's have some more of that confetti. Okay. Forever, that might be a good journal prompt as well. You see, you go through it, by going through it 4 times looking for different things, looking in a different way, maybe flipping the page upside down sometimes, you spot many more things than if you've gone through it just once. No matter how thoroughly you go through it the first time looking for things, I think walking away from it, coming back, doing another sweep, you do start to spot things you haven't noticed before. Like with anything, really. Okay. Sort of very little set of stripes there, which we could cut out. That's some lovely background there, lovely angles you can play with. Now, I wonder what happens if we cut some, I know those are numbers. They're a bit big to use as numbers, but if I cut out with the craft punch without looking, without thinking about it too much, we might get some interesting shapes going on the surface. We might not. It might be a bit of a waste of our time. You never know. Let's see. I'm gonna fold that over. Get in here. Loud punchy noises. Let's see what we've ended up with then. Ooh, now then. That's good. With the stripes. Interesting half loop going on. Could have been a little better, but again, if we use these together on a page and have stripes going in different directions, that's quite good fun. That, I hadn't expected a whole circle there. Oh, we could have that behind another one, layer it up a bit. Yeah, I'm quite happy with those stripes actually. Good stuff. Okay. So that did not look like a pattern when we first saw it on the page, but by cutting out the shapes, not thinking about it too much, just randomly cutting bits out, we did achieve a pattern. Okay. Now I keep coming back. Oh, hang on a second. Let's do this first. Definitely harvesting you. Now, do I want a circle? Do I want a whole piece? I think a circle and a frame from that. White going to get in the way. I think in this case I am going to look at what I'm doing. Let's see, try and line it up. Make the most of that. What do we think about there for our circle? Alright, let's go for it. There we go. So it's our frilly edged circle, and then get as much of this as we can. Okay, and we've got a frame. And some extra bits, and we can cover up the bits of hands we can draw on there. We can add other bits of paper on top of it. I think that is going to come in really, really handy, as is our circle that we took out. Okay. Ah, we've got yellow stripes here. Look at that. Let's take out some of that. Yep, happy with that. I could take more out on my own later on. What was it I was going to do before? Now, is there anything we can do with those trainers? Because they have been arranged in a bit of a gradient. That's what the advertiser was going for. Where's the other half of it? It'll turn up. Is there anything we can do there? What I'm going to do is get the craft knife. Do I have a ruler up here? I do have a ruler up here. Let's see. Yeah, don't particularly want the logo in there. Let's see if I just take a stripe from there. Cut that there. Is that anything? Gosh, you know, I'm not sure. Maybe just that top bit where the black's coming in. You've got these interesting black shapes starting. I'll keep it. No harm in keeping it, as long as you've got some space left. Keep it. I'll cut out a few more. See what it gives us. And again, turning it round, flipping it upside down, putting it against something else. Yeah, those front shapes are quite interesting, aren't they? You never know. You can come back to it in a couple of months and look at it and have a fantastic idea, or you might come back and look at it and think, why on earth did I save that? Yeah, more stripes and exciting shade of pink going into yellow there as well. I can see this being quite inspirational. And this is the cover of the magazine, so it's a bit thicker. It's not quite as good for collage, but there's some more grass texture there, which I might look into later. So that's giving you the idea. That was our third thing, was patterns, and we found quite a few there. Now the final thing is where our markers come into play. Somewhere on this desk, buried in all of these papers, are some markers. There we go. That I think is a slightly sparkly grey one. Brought out some pale green, brought out some white. I grab a bright yellow as well. And this is where we're going to go through our papers for the final time. We're going to find blocks of plain colour. Some of them I will cut out as strips myself. You don't need to see me doing that. It's exactly the same as we did with the pattern. I'll just cut out a square of that colour to use later. However, what I'm going to do for you on camera is just doodle some little shapes on here, so that when we cut round them, we get sort of ready-made decorations, focal points, just little bits of ephemera that we can stick in things. What that pen has just done is fling acrylic paint everywhere. Let me fix that then. Okay, that pen is in timeout for now, although I bet you one of these others will do it as well. Honestly, I have not found much of a difference between the more expensive, quite well known acrylic pens. You can see that one's leaked all over at some point, and the cheaper ones. I know people rave about the Posca pens. They do have really good coverage, but in terms of whether they leak or not and how easy they are to use, I have not really seen much difference between those and just these ones were from the works. Crawford and Black is the, I would say, fake art brand name, but the slightly fancy sounding term that they apply to their art supplies, I think. But yeah, no, these are the ones that have been fine, just as fine as the Poscas. I just occasionally have had to go over things a couple of times. That's the only difference I've noticed. Anyway, that was my very brief review of pens. Shaking that slightly to activate it. I need a spare bit of paper. You know what, I'm going to go on this circle that I'm not using. Activate that a bit. If I am doing something wrong with these pens, if you know that I'm doing something wrong, then do tell me, because I've been using the acrylic pens for a while, but I've not really looked into any sort of best practice for what I'm doing with them. So it could well be that they're leaking because I'm being daft and doing something wrong. That is entirely a possibility. Anyway, got a nice big expansive yellow here. So I'm just going to draw a simple branch of leaves here. We're going to get a little bit of that texture at the back, which is going to be quite nice. Very, very simple leaf pattern. I'm going to do a few dots around it, which just kind of fixes it in space slightly. Makes it a bit more than just a free floating leaf. Down here, I'm going to draw a similar thing but more of a vine pattern, I think. Alternate the leaves on this one. I'm not going for anything complicated, nothing that requires a lot of skill particularly. These aren't artworks in themselves. It could all contribute to something. It's just nice to then later cut out and have on hand to use. Now, do I want dots around this one as well? I might leave it for now and then see if I want to add anything. Oh no, I know what I'll do. I'll do a few little spirally tendrils coming off, like it's a climbing plant. I think there's something has been spilled on here, or there's a bit of printing error or something that's stopping the ink from catching as much. Okay, a little grabby tendrils there. Possibly should have done that in a thinner pen, but never mind. At the end of the day, all I've wasted is a magazine that was going in the recycling anyway and a tiny bit of ink. Okay, not going to cut those out immediately. I'm going to put those to one side so that I make sure the ink's totally dry. I like to leave them for about half an hour. Usually does it depending on the temperature and humidity and everything, but half an hour I'll come back and cut those out. So that's one set. I wonder if we can find a darker page that we could use our white on. Oh, you know what? That'd be good for a leaf, I think. I'll use grass texture, however. Now you see this one's gone all leaked a bit as well, hasn't it? You activate them and then they get far too active. Right, let's see if this will work. Draw slightly shaggy leaf. Because what I'll do when I cut this out is I won't cut exactly around the outline. I will go slightly outside of it so we leave some of that a nice wobbly edge on it. In the middle, a few more lines there. Yep, that's fine. Do I want another? We've got a lot of this background, haven't we? Slightly longer curvy leaf, which we could put down the edge of something. And this time I'm going to do, split it in half. I'm going to put my lines going all the way to the edge. Yep, and a couple of leaves we can use for something. Again, set that to dry. We could use our yellow for something. I think that yellow against the turquoise that is cropping up everywhere could be quite nice. So let's do one last thing. A bit of a shake. This hasn't leaked everywhere yet. Who knows what the general pattern is? Yep, that's doing all right. Yeah, I'm just going to do one of my usual interlocking spirals. Been drawing these since I was a teenager, I think. It's just what I naturally gravitate towards, as a sort of muscle memory thing. these interlocking spirals. And with some lines and some extra dots. So that could also be just a little bottom border, a little page divider type thing. I cut that out, got a bit close to the edge, but never mind. Any more for any more? Pale green. That's quite blurred. Now that is somebody's back. I think it's blurred enough that my brain might let me get away with it. Let's see if I do this and then wake up having nightmares about it tonight. Okay, let's go with a long fish shape. Small back fins. You can hear the scrabbling from the scratches of the mat underneath. I should have done this on a flatter surface really. Give it a bit of a fin at the top. Give it a head and an eye. And then give it some sort of pattern on the middle. Let's see, a bit of cross hatching. Maybe. And then, how's that? Happy little fish. Happy little fish. Yeah. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an introduction to how to make a stonking great mess everywhere for a start. But how to get a whole bunch of interesting backgrounds, colours, bits of ephemera, shapes and things that you can use in your collages and in your art journaling, even from a magazine which doesn't look all that inspirational or isn't quite to your taste to start with. Even if you just get like a company catalogue in the post, maybe bits of junk mail, leaflets that you pick up from somewhere. We do all, I think, end up acquiring bits of this kind of thing. And you might look at it and think, oh, that's completely useless. I can't possibly use that in a journal or anything. That's just going straight in the bin. Maybe just try and look at it again with fresh eyes for those 4 different things. Image portions, text and lettering, patterns, and blocks of colour. If you look at it in those terms, flip it over, turn it upside down, walk away from it, come back to it, you might spot things that you didn't think were there. That's all from me then for today. I hope that's been useful. I really apologise for any bits of background noise. There is some traffic going on outside. My husband's watching a film somewhere. I'll try and get rid of any extraneous noise as much as I can, but I can't promise I'll get all of it. I'll be sure to make a quick little post on YouTube or possibly on Instagram showing you what I make from the bits that I've cut out. And barring that, I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.